Welcome to the third annual Veterans Month webinar from Veterans for EVs. Thank you for joining us. My name is Al Curtis, and a member of the Veterans for EV Steering Committee, and I am also the Fleet Services Director for Cobb County, Georgia, and also definitely a proud Army veteran, serving for over 9 years in several different duty stations, of course. Convened by the Electrification Coalition, Veterans for EVs is a rallying point for advocacy and action by U.S. military veterans in support of transportation electrification. All about electrification. The initiative allows veterans to network with others and learn from others on issues of oil dependence, national security, American jobs and EV-related industries, energy security, and economic prosperity, which all of us want that. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a little about the national security benefits of the transition to electric vehicles. We'll dispel some of the myths driving the political pushback against the shift to EVs. We'll bring on other partners with American Resilience Project and show a short film clip digging into how the military is viewing electrification. Then we'll have a great panel of veterans helping lead the EV transition, showcasing the work of Highland Electric, Nervia, and my own Cobb County government. Before we get too far into the agenda, I'd like to share the work of Cobb County and why we're convinced EVs are winners for fleets, and how we're helping prove that concept. Cobb County government is the third largest county in Georgia. We house currently 64 all-electric vehicles. We've been in the electric vehicle market for about a decade. We started early back in 2014 with 16 Nissan Leafs brought into our fleet. And we used that by basically looking at the duty cycles. And you'll find that most municipalities and fleets, if they really do data analysis, they'll look at their duty cycle and determine that EVs are definitely a total fit for any municipality. We use telematics to actually look at those duty cycles, and also just working with the departments and looking at the range that they travel during the day. And using that, we took out about 25 ICE vehicles out of the fleet and replace those with EVs. Of course, letting our drivers take a test drive and also doing ride-in drives and getting drivers in the seats. I mean, that's one of the key portions on how we ushered in our electrification movement. A lot of the drivers didn't think EVs were going to fit into the mix, but once we got them behind the seat of the vehicles, driving the vehicles, and experiencing the total cost reduction in their operational cost for their departments. So again, we deployed 16 Nissan Leafs, and according now, we're right about 64 to 65 total EVs within the fleet, about 56 charging stations strategically placed throughout the county. And we've seen an overall drop in, of course, our greenhouse gas emissions. We've seen a drop in our overall cost per mile, and also experienced the great benefits of our department users' adoption of EVs. We partnered with local municipalities and sharing our EV experience, and also we partnered with local utilities to actually usher in EV infrastructure. We've also shown firsthand the benefits of electrification within Cobb County transportation, on how the future of transportation is to be shaped with EVs. Widespread adoption of EVs is the best strategy to weaken the monopoly on our transportation sector and strengthen the U.S. national security, as EVs also offer cost savings to consumers and fleet operators, economic development opportunities, and new jobs in the auto and technology sectors. Due to bi-directional charging capabilities as well, EVs can serve as alternative power sources, making electrification grid more resilient and secure. And we're likely to hear more about the concept later on from Dave and Pat from Nirvana and also Highland. Cobb County has demonstrated that EVs offer cost savings not only to consumers, but also to private and public fleets. EVs are significantly cheaper in fuel than their internal combustion engine counterparts, which are ICE engines. Due to their efficiency and the cost for electricity is definitely less expensive and more stable price than gasoline, as we know how volatile the gasoline market and petroleum market is. Case in point, we had a situation here in Georgia where our pipeline was hacked and we were almost running out of fuel, but through having alternative fuel sources with EVs that we had in our fleet, we were able to also continue operation with less disruption than other fleets as well. EVs also have fewer moving parts, which require less maintenance and saving owners and operators money over time. And we've experienced that here in Cobb Fleet as well. Being that we've been in the EV arena for over a decade, we train our technicians how to work on these EVs, and we've actually put on different training classes for other fleets, showing them the cost effectiveness and also the less maintenance that these EVs require. U.S. national security benefits are significant as well. The transportation sector alone accounts for the largest share of the United States petroleum consumption, at about 66% in 2022. Our military spends about $81 billion annually defending oil markets. Before that, 50% of the daily oil supplies travel through several major checkpoints, is often unstable and also unstable regions, particularly in the Middle East. As the past 2 years in Ukraine and the past 2 months in the Middle East have demonstrated, petrostates have an outsized influence on our world stage. The U.S. oil dependency threatens national security and undermines our ability to conduct effective foreign policy. The global shift to EVs offers our nation the best opportunities to break our addiction to oil and swap this volatile global commodity for stable, domestically produced electricity. From a job of economic development perspective, Georgia is helping demonstrate for the nation how clearly EVs are positive opportunity and environmentally stable. The past 8 years has seen significantly private investments in EV battery component manufacturing, and over 120 billion in private investments have been announced, resulting into 143,000 new jobs. In Georgia alone, investments announced since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, also over the years ago, including a $5 billion from Rivian, creating 7,500 new jobs, and 4.3 billion from Hyundai and LG, which will create 3,000 jobs, and a $5 billion joint investment from Hyundai and SK, creating another 3,000 jobs. Governor Brian Kemp has said he wants to make Georgia the electric mobility capital of the United States, despite similar supportive statements from the governors of Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, Illinois, and Michigan. EV investments are being pulled into a more partisan and less supportive political fight. Currently, the majority of politicians seeking the Republican presidential nomination have taken shots at federal EV investments. The attacks are based on the claim that EVs will increase reliance on Chinese manufacturing. Ironically, the best way to guarantee American reliance on Chinese manufacturing is to by attacking EVs and weakening the IRA. The IRA promotes American manufacturing and development of domestic supply chains by subsidizing EVs that are both manufactured in North America and use a high percentage of critical materials sourced here in the U.S. or one of our closest allies. By helping establish a strong American EV industry, the domestic industry supply chains, the IRA boosts the American economy and strengthens our manufacturing base against China imports. President Biden's policies, such as the IRA and the bipartisan infrastructure law, didn't start the EV transition. And no amount of policy reversal or backsliding will stop EVs, already making up 8% of the new vehicle sales in the US, 14% globally, and are increasing every year after year. Industry and markets experts agree that the transition, which began over a decade ago, that's when we started, and gained momentum during the Trump administration, and inevitably, in other words, the question isn't whether we will drive EVs, it's whether we'll build them. Decades ago, we offshored microchip production and mineral processing, becoming reliant on the rest of the world to build microchips and semiconductors, critical to nearly everything we use today: iPhones, vehicles. When we faced shortage, we had to pass the Bipartisan Chip and Science Act in 2022 to promote American semiconductor manufacturing. We cannot make the same mistake again with the auto industry. Now I'm happy to bring my fellow veterans and EV steering committee members, Kevin Johnson, to introduce one of our partners in the American Resilience Project. Welcome, Kevin.
Al, thank you so much. And that's a tough act to follow. You covered so much ground, and you really hit on so many key attributes that EVs bring to the table, not just in jobs and economic development and opportunities and the ways to secure our national security. But one of the key points that I like to highlight as an EV owner myself is just performance. It is just a much, much better driving experience that I think sometimes is lost in the mix. And this was recently reinforced to me by my West Point roommate, who is very conservative and skeptical on anything that I do professionally as a good roommate would do, and called me out of the blue before Thanksgiving to inform me that he had just bought a Ford F-150 and went on for 20 minutes to explain to me all of the great things that his Ford F-150 Lightning, can do, and that he had spent the entire Thanksgiving period reaching out to all his friends and family to let them know about this amazing new vehicle that he'd just gotten, living near you in Georgia. So I can confirm there, Al, that Georgia is quickly becoming the EV capital, and convincing folks like my West Point roommate to jump on board, which is very exciting. And I'd like to introduce you here to another good friend of mine, Roger Sorkin. I've been very fortunate to serve as the board director to the American Resilience Project for the past few years, and have worked with Roger in various capacities over time, and really appreciate what Roger has been able to do to really bring the voice to our community and to communities around the country to really help tell the story about where we've been and where we're going, and why, and especially at the intersection of national security and energy security. So Roger, thanks so much for joining us here today to get a quick view of your film, and love to learn a little bit more about your film and why you were motivated to put it together.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody. It's really great to be with you. I'm not a veteran. I want to say that from the start. I am a citizen, though, and I pay my taxes, and I know that a good 20% of them go to our defense and our national security apparatus, and I feel a very serious responsibility that those dollars be used in a way that saves lives and money. I think we've been a little too frivolous as a country in terms of sending men and women into battle, and I don't like it. And so I want to do whatever I can to make sure that if we're going to ask you to serve and make sacrifices, that we've thought of everything that we can to make sure that we're only asking as a last resort. And so I have been a filmmaker for a number of years, previously a journalist. I've been very frustrated over the framing of debates seems to really get my hackles up sometimes. I don't like the black and white that tends to be attached to very nuanced, complex arguments. And I started making films on the subject of national security and specifically the intersection of energy security and climate about 10 years ago with a film called The Burden, which is how Kevin and I met, and really opened up my eyes to the sacrifices that we make as a country to feed the energy dependence that we have on fossil fuels. So anything we can do to reframe that story, really talk about this in terms of lives and money, not so much in terms of saving the planet, which I think is a bit of human arrogance. The planet will get rid of us if it needs to, no problem, and continue on. It's really the comforts of human civilization that we're talking about here. And so I try to tell stories that are going to bring people together, not really to try to depolarize in a very polarized environment is a challenge. But I think I've found a frame when we're talking about security and saving lives and money that really works here. And I think the conversation about EVs, that's really where we need to go. Anytime it comes up, and someone says we're spending too much money on all this climate stuff, I try to just bring the conversation back to, don't you want to save lives and money? Don't you want to do everything you can to save lives and money? And so the excerpt that you're about to see is a film that's still a work in progress. It's specifically looking at the military's transition to electrification, and not so much the wider energy burden issues that we as a country bear, in terms of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open and other sorts of deals that we have to do with unsavory characters because we need their oil. This is specifically how the military, and I should say in this clip, specifically how the Army is thinking about transitioning to electrification. The film is still a work in progress. We hope to raise the money to continue making it. But in the meantime, the excerpt should stand on its own as a tool that hopefully you can use in your conversations with others about why this is a security issue first and foremost. So I think we can cue that up. It's a little rough around the edges. Please forgive the aesthetics. We haven't gotten to the point where we're mixing audio and color correcting and doing graphics and all that good stuff. But much more about the substance over style. So hopefully it'll serve its purpose. So we can play that now and then come back to discuss.
Every combat resupply mission is a combat mission. So I have to move fuel or ammunition or food or anything on the battlefield. It becomes a target, and it takes combat power to protect that logistics convoy and that operation. And it takes time.
Moving towards electrification of the fleet, the reason we continue to look at these technologies is we owe it to our soldiers to give them the best equipment possible, give them reliable equipment that will deliver the capability that that equipment is supposed to deliver. It's got to be responsive, it's got to be there when they need it, because we can't have failure on the battlefield.
Electrification provides that electric power forward to man their weapon systems, their sensors, their communications equipment. It reduces the burden on our soldiers to stay in the fight and win the fight effectively and quickly with as few casualties as possible and move to the next fight.
There are many advantages to having an electrified source or a hybridized power plant in a vehicle. You extend the range of the vehicle. You decrease the reliance upon the logistics that would be associated with moving petroleum products to and from that vehicle. And typically those vehicles are built with less moving parts. So when there's less moving parts, there's going to be less maintenance, the reliability increases. So there's all sorts of benefits. And oh, by the way, an electrical vehicle is much more quiet than an AGT 1500 on an M1 A2 SEP tank.
You give a soldier an opportunity to be more efficient at their job, and just to put it bluntly, hey, I can be better at killing the bad guy, nobody's going to turn down that opportunity. I don't think they're going to miss the heat and the noise that comes along with an internal combustion engine, because if they can do their job that they do now, but do it silently, they're that much more lethal at that point. Nobody's going to turn down the opportunity to be more lethal and more effective in their job.
Today, an infantry platoon carries a little over 300 pounds of batteries for a 72-hour mission. So how can I regenerate power for those batteries forward? Exportable power from electric vehicles is a way to scavenge power off of combat vehicles in which we're riding. But anything that can reduce that burden on those soldiers, what they have to carry on their back or how long it takes them to resupply power, how far back they have to go from the front lines to resupply that power, that's what I'm trying to reduce. The one thing that we have in common with the commercial automotive industry is we need security in supply chains so that we're not dependent on somebody else for rare earth materials, microchips, or anything else.
There are a number of critical minerals that the United States is almost completely reliant on China for. China has a comparative advantage in processing, so not just in the geological resource, and for them it's rare earth elements. They've also made global investments in cobalt, for example, niobium in Brazil, lithium. They've had a very thorough strategy, and so their advantage is profound. We have all allowed that to happen over time because it was cheaper, it was easier. Their environmental restrictions are less. And I think there's now a shift back over in the United States, in a lot of our partner and ally nations, to rethink this.
Great. Those are some really great video segments. And I'd like to share just a little bit about what Cobb County is doing as well. We have videos. If anybody out there wants to go to cobbcounty.org under fleet management, we are firm believers on telling the story, not having people not recreate the wheel. As far as electrification on how quiet it is, we deployed electric motorcycles. We have Ford Lightnings. We have the new Nissan Aria. We've looked at all different types of electric vehicles in all the different facets. We also have the first electric prisoner transport van in the country. And we've been urging the big three to come up with more electric vehicle options. And as you see, when you turn on the TV almost every day, there's a new manufacturer that's actually producing electric vehicles. So electric vehicles are here to stay. They again have less moving parts. They're more efficient and more economical than ICE vehicles. And the infrastructure is definitely broadening. And here at Cobb County, we're doing our part to actually broaden that ecosystem of electrification with deploying of chargers and working with local utilities to get more infrastructure in place. So it was great to see the Department of Defense is focused on possible benefits and opportunities and challenges in the transitions for EVs. Well, now we'll turn to our panel of veterans who are helping lead the charge in transitioning and share some real-world experience with how EV deployments are currently played out. We're joined by Scott Missicle, who helps maintain and manage Cobb County EV fleet. Patrick McGinney also works with Highland Fleets, and David Burrick with Nervia. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us to share your thoughts and insights. So we'll start right now with Scott.
So I am, again, the supervisor of car, light truck, and motorcycle shops for Cobb County. I manage about 1,700 assets. Currently, our fleet is 13.7% either hybrid or EV on our car and light trucks shop side. Al had mentioned some of those numbers. We're up to 66 EV now and 144 hybrid. And we have about 1.5% of other alternative fuels, but we're here to talk about electrification. So we're happy with the electrification. And are the slides showing? There we are. So in all, we have approximately 2,700 vehicles. That's light and heavy duty side, 10 million miles traveled a year. over 750,000 residents that we serve. And I mentioned some of those vehicles that we have. So with that amount of miles and vehicles and so forth, we do due diligence under the leadership of Al Curtis to electrify, save money, and reduce carbon emissions in our mission and in Cobb County's mission throughout, the course of our vast business of serving almost 800,000 customers. It is my job to service and maintain all these vehicles. I got some highlighted here. We're trying to transition our sheriff and police right now. We did start back in 2017 with some zero motorcycles for our Rangers. We have 4 Mustang Mach-E's. We have 4 EV Blazer PPVs on order. And as Al mentioned, also our first ever in the country prisoner transport electric van. Just real quick, the numbers on that electric van, I'm going to go a little bit deeper here in a minute, but over the first 3 years of ownership, we'll save the county $40,500. And that is no joke. That is the cost of repairs, the cost of fuel. That van travels 24,000 miles a year, and is essential for the sheriff department. So we'd like to get more of that deployed as well. Some other cool things that we're doing here in Cobb County, our truck shop renovation. Lower right, we put solar panels on top of that whole building, and we have battery backup. So that will back up our fuel island, our truck shop if it loses fuel. Plus, I was just up there the other day and I seen that 80% of the usage of that shop that day was run off of solar. So another thing that we are researching and looking into is creating a microgrid here, possibly using some of our landfill land across the street and be self-sustained, but also help with that energy grid as we know that we're moving more heavily into electrification. Some of our future plans, of course, more EVs and hybrids, improving our charging infrastructure, and that be forward facing to the public as well. Alternative fuel research, we're doing a lot of there. And then my job, training our technicians and maintaining the shop as it's up to its highest standards. So one thing that I want to highlight right quick, the Cobb County in 2022 used 31,167 e-gallons kilowatt hours, saving the county approximately $90,940 and reducing 200,000 pounds of carbon emissions. So that's what I'm doing here, and that's who we are, and we thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing that information with us. And we are doing some pretty cool stuff here at Cobb County as well. We're working with Nissan on a reusing project for some of the older Nissan Leafs and wanting to work with them on transitioning them to underserved communities, because EVs, from the mainstream personnel, there's some underserved communities that don't know the value of the EVs and don't know the capabilities of it. So we're trying to work with Nissan. We have some conversations with them about underserved communities, moving some of those EVs that have been turned in through leases and so on, moving those into veterans' hands as well as underserved communities. So that's another project that we're working with a local manufacturer as well. So now that was great information you provided for us, Scott. So now we're going to move straight over to Patrick. and let him share some information on some of the strategic things that they're doing in the EV space.
Thank you so much, Al. My name is Patrick McGinley. I'm the Director of Federal Business Development here at Highland. Highland Electric Fleets, we specialize in electrification solutions. We have been doing a lot of work primarily within the school districts as of right now, but my job is actually to develop the market within the federal space and particularly in the Department of Defense. All right, so what is the Highland story? The Highland story right now is that we were founded in 2019. We have secured about $60 million in grants and funding from various EPA grants, and especially for the clean bus programs. And I think this is a good point where we go ahead and see that we're taking what is in the infrastructure bill and actually putting it into practice. So we have also, let's see, we have the largest school project and in North America at this point, and that is at the Montgomery County Public School System, and that is a multi-year program where we are implementing electrification along with the charging, the buses, the staff development, and the training as well. So we've been doing this for quite a while and really getting some traction, and really just trying to further the electrification efforts that we have developed at this point. So how are we doing this? Well, we're doing it because we're experts in the EV implementation. So I think a lot of people who are new to electrification do not realize that it requires a coordination of the infrastructure, the energy, the operations. So what are some of that? Well, we're talking about utility interconnections, new services. We're talking about engineering, permits, grant compliance if we're getting funding or supplemental funding from the EPA or any other institution. We're also talking about chargers. All right, you can't just simply buy the vehicles and then put them up and expect them to run. Well, you need to go ahead and charge them. How can we go ahead and manage the charging infrastructure itself along with the fleet itself? So we provide a fleet management software as well as smart charging. And then for some of our projects right now, what we're doing is also this vehicle to grid concept, where some of these school buses are actually sitting for a majority of the summer. And what we do is we go ahead and provide back to the grid during those peak hours. And then the last thing is part of this equation is the operations and maintenance. What we will do is we will procure the actual vehicles themselves and the equipment. We'll test it, we'll commission it, and then we'll also do the training, the driver and the mechanic training. So we're not here to replace any jobs. What we're here to do is go ahead and supplement the drivers and the current training staff, maintenance staff with additional training. So here on this slide, we can see that just a quick map of where we're at. We're in 20 plus school districts as of right now. We have over 500 plus buses in contracts. And I think one of the big things here is that we just actually crossed the 1 million mile threshold for our electric vehicles. And why is that important? Well, it works. Okay, so I think for a lot of the skeptics that have been out there say, okay, well, we can't electrify larger vehicles like this to move people. Well, we're doing it, and it's a success story. And one of the ways that we do this is through our industry partners. Because Highland is technology agnostic, we take from the very best that's out there. We partner with them, so including the bus manufacturers, the chargers, as well as the software in this company called Synop, where they do the managing of the chargers as well as the smart charging. So here are some of our partners that we work with, and this also gives us some scale as well as developing that close relationship with the industry and to really provide that support network that is required. And then here, because we are dealing with public, semi-public entities, especially in school districts and local governments, what we have to do is we are looking at our cooperative procurement agency. So we were just awarded a Sourcewell contract, and that's out of Minnesota, but that one actually can be used nationwide. So I believe that Cobb County has used Sourcewell, and there's a lot of local governments that use Sourcewell as well, but it can be used by local, state, and school districts. And so we welcome anybody who is into the procurement areas to look at Sourcewell and be able to procure through that. It is already a pre-negotiated issued contract. And so it really does make this electrification much easier. So one of the things that I have been working on in the federal space is actually dealing with and trying to navigate the procurement aspects of our federal government. And so right now it is very disparate, as in terms of agencies are trying to procure just one vehicle or several vehicles, and then they realize they don't have any chargers. So then they try to go ahead and procure chargers, but then they have to install the chargers. Okay, well, who's going to be responsible for that? And so that is one of the big challenges that is still facing the federal government, especially in the DoD, is how are we going to do this in a holistic electrification sense instead of a conventional ICE mindset where you can just procure the vehicles and then go ahead and fuel it somewhere else. And so one of the key things that Highland does is we provide that from the beginning all the way to the end type of procurement option and the expertise as well. So here are some of the other ones. We have Spur out in California, the Illinois Energy Consortium, obviously in Illinois, and then some in the Northeast here, the power options. So next slide here is, again, well, what does this all mean? Well, hey, we have 97% uptime on our vehicles. We're performance-based. And so I think that was one of the key takeaways is just like on the battlefield, you want to be reliable. When you're moving children back and forth from school, you also want to be reliable. And one of the reasons why we're doing this is so that we can go ahead and provide the health impacts as well as a cleaner environment for our children, because we're really going to see the benefits of this, right? Not us, because as we get older, it's really going to be our children, our children's children that are going to benefit from this. So what does this do? You know, I've never heard of anybody say that, hey, I really enjoy that loud diesel bus idling while the students are getting on, or I really enjoy smelling all of the noxious gases that come out of the tailpipe from a diesel engine. So what are we doing here? We are providing school buses that have real results: 8% less absenteeism, all right, 16% less exposure, and that to toxic fumes, as well as this right here, which is 7% less risk in childhood asthma. So definitely have health impacts. And then again, sorry, I'm trying to reconnect again. The last slide here is there we go. The last slide here is we're operating in all climates at this point, not only in the hot South, down in Texas and Florida, but also in very cold climates. And so this right here is a picture of one of our buses that are in and being reliably used in the cold climate. And we were just featured actually on the front cover of the New York Times, and where we were being showcased in one of our South Burlington, Vermont locations. So I welcome anybody if you have any questions or would like to discuss further about school buses and what we're doing, and then as well as our federal procurement, to go ahead and reach out to me. And it's Patrick at highlandfleets.com. and you can see it here on this slide right here. So that's all I have.
Patrick, you make some really good points. I mean, I'm just thinking about our kids on the school buses, how what them on electric school buses is going to help usher in them moving to electric vehicles in themselves. And one thing I want to add too, in our senior services, we have senior services offices spread out throughout the county. And what really bothers me is we have senior service buses, and I've seen elderly people in wheelchairs on oxygen riding, getting pushed by these exhaust pipes with all that. And that really upsets me to a point to where we're looking at moving all of our senior service buses to electric. We already have one right now, and we're going to be looking to move more of those because they already, I mean, and those are veterans there too. Those are veterans that they're seniors that we take to different events. We take them shopping. We take them to their doctor's appointments. And it just really bothers me to see them going around in a wheelchair, getting into the door and have to go past that diesel exhaust pipe. And you make some really good points about our future of electrification is built on our kids. And when they see us making a proactive approach to decarbonize and move into electric, it's going to propel them to do the same and embrace it as well. And again, thank you, Patrick, for what you shared. Now up next, we have David. David, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. And Al, that hits home to me as well. I have two parents at an assisted care center, and they take the short, the small bus, type A bus, to various locations. And yeah, I would love for those to be electric as well. My name is David Bursick. I'm the Senior Vice President for Sales and Marketing at Nuvve, and I'm a proud U.S. Army veteran. I was served 4 years active duty at Fort Sam Houston in the Medical Service Corps. And, actually saw a lot of those. My first job was a battalion motor officer, so BMO officer, and I saw a lot of those dirty vehicles that we've been talking about. And I probably breathed in a lot of bad fumes at the time. So I'm very proud to be part of the electrification opportunity here. So if you can cue up the slides, appreciate it. All right, so really quickly, because I do want to save some time for Q&A at the end with the panel. So who is Nuvve? We've been doing this for a few years now, 7+. Actually came into existence. We're based out of San Diego, California. By the way, we have several veterans in our employment ranks, all the way up to our Chief Operating Officer and President, Ted Smith, and then several other members from the Marines and Air Force and Navy. So we represent all four services. We don't want to represent the Coast Guard, so all four outside of the Coast Guard. We do have 25 years of what we call, and you've heard this term, vehicle to grid. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the next slide, but 25 years of vehicle to grid experience in R&D, over 400 chargers deployed. And we're worldwide. So we have some active commitments going on and activities going on in Europe and in Japan. And one of them in Denmark. We've been the longest deployed V2G vehicle to grid program has been ongoing for over 7 years now. That's actually with Nissan, which is Al, you mentioned how you do a lot of work with Nissan as well. This is with the Leafs and their equivalent of a cargo van in Europe. And once again, been going on for 7+ years there. So it's a pretty interesting learning experience, which we're bringing back to the U.S. and deploying that various operations. Our big promise is, when we go to market, and we are brand agnostic, like Patrick said with Highland, we work with all the various OEMs. We focus on the school bus market. And I'll go into reasons why. But our promise to kind of the fleet operator is make sure the drivers always have enough energy to drive. Make sure the customers enjoy the cost savings and the revenue generation opportunities that both Al and others have spoke about already. And we work within the OEM battery warranty limits, which is very important, right? You don't want to just connect up something and hope for the best. We make sure that we go through the due diligence of making sure that we are, interoperability is what they call it, is connected, and make sure that we're working within the limits of the warranty. That's always important. On the next slide here, we call our V2G the world's most advanced. Basically what V2G is, think about it, it's the charging and the discharging of energy from those batteries. And, one thing that we do at Nuvi, we precisely control second by second, kind of that discharge and charging, mechanism, and making sure that the flow going from the electric vehicle to the grid is, doing it the most efficient way possible. The other thing too that we like to look at, and I think you've heard a couple individuals talk about this already. These school buses are really like virtual power plants. 50 of these buses can power the Empire State Building. There's over 500,000 buses being used on a daily basis, transporting 24 million students nationwide, and a very small fraction of them right now are electric. And we're hoping to electrify that whole group. And if you think about it, 50 can power the Empire State Building. Think what 500,000 can do. And those little virtual power plants that are going around. They provide that resiliency that Al was talking about earlier. When they had the brownout and the grid disruption down in Texas a few years ago, if there was a fleet of electric school buses there, that could have powered, schools, that could have powered hospitals, could have powered a lot of various things that need obviously electricity. And you're starting to see that kind of capability going forward. That's what V2G does. And you can actually sell the energy back to the grid. So think about it, one thing that's I would say one of the biggest obstacles for electric vehicles, especially on the school bus side, is the cost, right? In comparison with an ICE engine bus, you're talking probably 3 to 3.5 times higher in terms of the initial outlay. However, the reoccurring revenue that you can get from a V2G side, from the vehicle to grid side, could be anywhere from $5,000 on up per year per bus. So that's where you can start seeing the savings. And I think that's where you heard kind of what Cobb County is doing, and where they're starting to see the savings, not just on the mechanical side savings, but also on the grid services side. And one thing that we also have found too, with all this research and all this intelligence that we've been able to gain from the Denmark and other applications that we've been deploying worldwide, is we've learned that if we intelligently energy manage the battery charging and discharging, you can actually extend the life of a battery, right? Because that's one thing that I think a lot of kind of people brush over, is buses tend to be used anywhere between 12 to 15 years on up. Some states use them 20 years plus, per bus in the life. And, these batteries are not meant to last that long, in terms of that, 15 to 20 plus years. However, if you smartly or intelligently manage the optimization of those batteries on the V2G side, you can actually extend the life of those batteries. We show that could be up to almost 2.6 years. And that's just from early research. We believe as these batteries become much more efficient, the capacities increase, that battery life extension could probably be, go even further. And that's, once again, doing that smartly. So I mentioned, why school buses. A couple people have already talked about it. Obviously there's reasons why, the federal government and state governments are focusing on school buses. One thing, it's obviously the kids and the drivers. They're currently breathing in very toxic fumes, and as Patrick already alluded to, there's some great health benefits on that. However, it's the largest fleet in the U.S. It's a very consistent route. So they know for a fact that these buses go the same route every day, 50 to 60 miles round trip. And most of the battery ranges on these school buses are probably somewhere between 100 to 150. Right, so that they can accomplish and meet most, if not all, of the route requirements for these school buses. So it's a very consistent route. And once again, these buses sit around a lot. I mean, if we have 3 kids, they're all older now, but when they were in school, they weren't in school, 365 days a year. So these buses are not used. They go out in the morning, they come back, sit in the bus yard for about 5 or 6 hours. Then they go back out, pick up the kids, and drop them back off. And then they sit around all night. They sit around during, Thanksgiving break, holiday breaks. They sit around all summer for a couple of months. So there's a lot of opportunity where vehicle to grid can actually make money while those buses are just sitting idle. And obviously the reduction in carbon emissions is huge. And that's if you take 500,000 ICE engine buses off the road, that would be huge for obviously the betterment of the environment. And then one of the key pieces before I end, probably one of the biggest unknowns that most probably veterans don't realize, unless you've been most recently left the military, is a lot of the troops are transported via school buses. Now they're not yellow, they're blue, they're white, they're many different colors, but there's like 20 to 30,000 school buses that transport troops around the various posts, on a daily, hourly basis. All those buses can be converted over to electric, and that's a big push that you're going to see from the DoD in the near future here. And Nuvve, we've worked a lot with Bluebird, which is based out of Georgia, and all the other OEMs out there in terms of how we can integrate with their buses and with our charging stations to make sure that we can help them electrify those school buses and also those military buses as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Al. Thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a great one.
Everyone, Dave, man, I thank you very much for that insightful about the V2G technology. I mean, it is technology that's on the forefront, where county and municipality vehicles that do sit around can actually provide grid resiliency and also generate some revenue as well. So such diversities in projects, a lot of good information shared. So I guess if I'm only going to ask you guys a question, I'll try to remind the folks about what we're here for and why we're here and why this webinar is going on. Each one of you guys, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to talk about how and where do you see the EV transition and how it's going to affect veterans moving forward. So Dave, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Al. Finding my mute button. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think where it's going to impact veterans across the board is obviously if you're married and you have children, obviously them going back and forth to school on a daily basis, making sure that they're going in the most cleanest and environmentally friendly mode of transportation. But jobs, this is one thing that you're seeing through the federal and state programs that are out there. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I drive up to see my family in Indiana, and I pass the Ford plant that's being built. It's a big battery plant in Kentucky. Tons of programs are being done in throughout the Southeast and throughout the United States. And so there's going to be a ton of job opportunities, I think, for veterans to utilize their experience, their leadership that they gained as a U.S. military individual, and bring that to the private sector. We're looking for a lot of great leaders out there, and I know there's a lot of great leaders that were developed and are being developed in the military. And so, Al, I think that's probably one thing that excites me as a prior veteran, and also talking to current veterans and on this call, is just the opportunity that's going to be out there for the foreseeable future. And I'm talking decades from now. So it's not one of those industries that you're going to jump in and it's going to be replaced by the computer or by AI anytime tomorrow.
Thanks, Dave. What about you, Patrick? What do you have to share about the way you see the transition happening, how it's affecting veterans?
Yeah, thanks, Al. I think many veterans have joined the service because they see something and want to be part of something greater than themselves. And I do believe that we are looking at a transition here to the electric fleet to actually be more resilient and provide another service to the future of our country, as well as our children. And so one of the big things that I would like to say is that as a veteran, that this has become a partisan issue, and it shouldn't be, right? And as a veteran, I think we can all, no matter what our politics is really get together here and have that one single voice as veterans to say that, hey, we do want a cleaner environment. We do want more reliable transportation. We do want, and as a husband and a father, I don't want to go to the gas station to fill up my wife's car. So I think that's one of those things where we can all agree that there are very practical reasons to go electric in this space.
Thank you, Patrick. Good information. And last but not least, we're going to Scott. What are your thoughts on how the EV revolution transition is going to be affecting our veterans?
Yeah, thank you for the question, because what I know about being an 8-year veteran or 8 years in the United States Army is every minute there could be a change to the mission. Every minute there could be, a new direction. And so veterans are already programmed that way. And so with pushback along the industry, we would invite veterans to join a group like Cobb County and to transition and to think forward instead of thinking, backward. And so this provides an excellent opportunity for veterans to get into public fleets, private fleets, and make a very good living, and as well as make a difference, make a change. We serve around 1,000 police and sheriff officers. Those officers serve the 800,000 people out there. This is something that the transition, we're going to be cleaner, we're going to be better, we're going to be more efficient, but we're also going to be able to serve our communities better.
Thank you, Scott, for that insightful information. And thanks to all the veterans on this panel. Also, thanks to Kevin and Roger for the information about the American Resiliency Project and the great film teaser. Before I wrap up, I want to encourage all to use a nonpartisan voice to support EV transition. The Electrification Coalition is currently urging action to support the move to electrified freight future. Major fleets like Amazon, Nestle, Pepsi, and others are committing to the transition. And the White House is currently determining how strong to set a new rules to limit emissions from heavy-duty trucks into the future. Please visit the Veterans for EVs action page and add your voice to this effort. Veterans for EVs welcomes any and all veterans to our efforts to support and lead the EV transition. Feel free to contact the Electrification Coalition directly to be added to our list share or discuss how you can get involved. And again, thank the panel, and I appreciate everybody's attention today. And if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please reach out. And I thank you again.